Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Karina Fitzgerald. I'm the Communications Program Coordinator for the Lincoln Center. And on behalf of the Lincoln Center for Applied Ethics, we welcome you to TikTok and Tarot, Imagining Ethical Futures for Social Media. The Lincoln Center for Applied Ethics was founded in 1998 with the vision of Joan and David Lincoln that ethical behavior can create better and more positive outcomes in every facet of life. We believe that to be an ethics center, we cannot just talk about ethics, but we must do ethics. And this means exploring new and ethical approaches to traditional research methods and pedagogy, centering people, not products, in critical interventions in our relationships with technology, and by always asking the essential question, whose account is to count? It is with this vision in mind that a team at the Lincoln Center have developed a project, Understanding Algorithmic Fault Theories, Tracing Community-Based Knowledge on TikTok, which recently was identified in the first ever round of grant awards from the National Endowment for the Humanities, Dangers, and Opportunities of Technology program. Many of us regularly interact with the algorithm, but what exactly does that mean? What does it say about our relationships with emerging tech and social media? This project takes community-based understandings of algorithms and as a starting point for co-creating shared vocabulary across university partnerships. I have the pleasure of introducing the project leads behind this research, and they are also my fellow colleagues at the Lincoln Center. Dr. Sarah Florini, Associate Director and Associate Professor of Film and Media Studies, Dr. Erica O'Neill, Research Program Manager at the Lincoln Center, and Liz Grumbach, our Manager of Digital Humanities and Research. Thank you guys so much for being here. And I'm going to give a brief round of applause for our there. Thank you. So I want to start, and I'm just going to make sure that our slides are moving here. I'm going to start with a few questions for our panel here. And I'll actually turn first to Sarah. So why is an ethics center studying social media?
That's a great question. Well, at the center, we do a lot of work around technology in general because there's really no part of our life that is untouched by technology. And social media in particular is a growing phenomenon. Increasingly, people are using social media. They're using it to get their news. They're using it to connect with folks. And all of the content on social media is algorithmically curated by what that platform thinks your tastes and preferences are. And given that, as many of us know, social media is increasingly a dumpster fire of misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theories. There are privacy issues about data mining and how your data is being tracked and used by these platforms. And so it's really ethical concerns all the way down. So it's precisely the kind of thing that we are interested in as an ethics center. And so we were really excited to receive this NEH grant to study the algorithm on TikTok, but we think that that research it extrapolates to other platforms.
I'll now turn to Liz. Liz, I'd love to learn a bit more and have everybody else hear about some of the folks that you're collaborating on, that you all are collaborating on this project with, and what it is that you hope to create together.
I love that this slide is showing right here because we are collaborating directly with content creators. So the content creators that we are collaborating with are from the Online Content Creators Association. They recently just changed their name to OCA. So OCA is all of you referring to them. They used to be TOCA, very similar, so I keep tripping up. We're collaborating with representatives from them. So we've been writing grants, we've been doing speaker series and panels with folks from this Content Creators Union. They're really an advocacy group. So what their goal is to improve labor conditions and relations for all content creators. So not just TikTok, but everyone. We've been working really closely with TikTok content creators, but as everyone knows, if you're a content creator, you're actually on a lot of platforms, and that's kind of the only way that you can get your content out there as much as possible. So for the project itself, which maybe my colleagues can talk later too, we are going to be working with a project team that is half academics and half people from this labor advocacy group to interview content creators and get their understanding of how the platform works. And we want to combine that with our academic understanding of how the platform works, as my colleague Karina said, to kind of create shared vocabularies and create a model for doing this, this research in the future that is based in ethics, that is based in care, and that is based in kind of community academic partnerships, which we think is a novel approach. We can talk a little bit about what we mean about folk theory, I think, maybe later if there's a question from the audience. But I think that at the heart of what we're doing, we think that it's important to document not only content creators' experiences on the platform, but understand how they are understanding the platform. Any follow-up questions, Karina?
No, I think you answered that beautifully. Thank you so much. And this is where I'm now going to transition to what might be some of the intrigue for today's event. Erica, I'd love to ask you why TikTok and tarot of all things? Why Oracle deck? Why this project?
So in the interest of speaking in shared vocabulary, as Liz just mentioned, these decks were developed in conversation with a group of academics, activists, entrepreneurs, technologists. So they are a reflection of the interdisciplinary folks that we had in the room through a series of year-long conversations around subjects in humane technology. And so with that sort of understanding, we have had these sort of second life to them, and we try to bring them into situations where we think it might also be a way to more playfully sort of get at the generative exploratory nature of these tools. Like they don't need to be a prognosticator for you to be able to tell stories, to get symbolism from them, to enjoy the art, to see what sort of combinations and underlying sort of things trigger as you're moving through them all. And people just really throughout history and in modern day love Oracle decks and tarot. I mean, it might just be my algorithmically curated TikTok experience, but there is a lot of that on there. And so in the spirit of trying to be true to the platform and a lot of the sort of content that's generated there, we thought it would be a great way to pair something that we've already done in a mixed group with like a group of folks who are creating different sort of interdisciplinary experiences with a discussion of what we hope to do with folks on the OCA platform advocacy group around TikTok and how they are identifying and trying to figure out what goes into the algorithm and how they can get their content in front of the media. So that's the short history of TikTok and tarot.
So now this is the time where we turn to the workshop aspect of today's event, and we wanted to reserve as much time as possible for you guys to interact with these cards and to get deeper into some of the ethical questions and some things that we've been really thinking about here at the center. So if you have not already, some of you may have started opening up your decks of cards that are in front of you. For those of you here in the room, if you haven't, I invite you to do that now. I also have pairs of scissors if they are hard to get into. For folks joining us online, we'll be dropping a link into the chat momentarily to a virtual version of our deck in which you can either join a Google slide deck or download a copy of the slides, and you'll see an opportunity to use a virtual version of these cards as well. I'll also add that you'll notice this deck does not come with a traditional user guide that most narrative and Oracle style decks come with. That is very intentional. So they're meant to be open-ended and interpreted in a couple of different ways, but I'm actually going to turn it back to our two project leads, Liz and Erica, who have a bit more expertise in this area and work very closely on this project. And they're going to share a bit for those of you who might be novices to these types of decks, how to use them. So Liz or Erica, let's take it away.
I'll go first and then tag Erica in. So actually, anyone in the room or online, have y'all ever played with a narrative storytelling deck, a tarot deck, or an Oracle card deck before? And I mean play, but also use as a tool. So a few folks saying no. All right, and online I'll check later. So one of the things to know about decks like these is that they're not necessarily about seeing the future, but they are about looking inwards. so that we can see ourselves and kind of our society and our surroundings more clearly or with a different perspective. So we can think about future. So it's not about seeing the future, but it's about thinking about possible future. And something we do a lot in the Lincoln Center is think about what ethical possible futures look like for both technological innovation, but also for humanity and a humane society in general. So the important thing to know about the design of the card deck is that it is very loosely based on the major arcana or tarot, which represents a journey. So you might see if you look through those cards, the seed. The thing that we've designed throughout these cards is that really it's the seed's journey. So if you think about each of the cards as kind of a stage in a journey, that's one way to interpret the cards. You can come up with many, many, many ways of using this deck, however. What we're gonna do is we're gonna ask you to do a couple of exercises. You have a brochure in front of you, but really this is about using this as a tool to see different perspectives. So I think we have up here, yeah, okay. So we have up here, all decks like this are deeply, deeply symbolic. So if you look closely at these images, at the cards in your hand, at the cards online, you'll see that there are so many details. I'm going to pick a card to talk about. I'm going to talk about the seed really quickly. So some things that strike me, and always look for things that strike you. Some things that strike me is that the seed is actually coming up through asphalt. So it's breaking through something. What does that mean to me? Not exactly sure. Maybe we could figure that out together. There's a full moon in the background, but it also looks like there's some buildings on fire. What does that mean? What's in the foreground? What are the colors? What colors strike you in these cards? So really, as you work through them, think about the things that strike you. Erica, how about you? What strikes you in these cards?
So we worked with an amazing designer, Neil Smith, and he does really complex scientific illustrations in addition to more graphic design work. So all of these are created with sort of those underlying themes that he had in mind of nature and technology, a built environment versus a natural environment. There's a lot of different color palettes depending on the theme. We've got hands with robots. We have hands that are more humanist and organic. And there's always this sort of tension between like organic and built, human built environment. So that strikes me. I also loved that he looked up the binary code for everything that you see on there. And if you have a microscope, like a little microscope, you can kind of zoom in and read what it says.
Yeah, all of the binary code on the cards are a secret message from Neil Smith, our artist.
So he's also like, this is very intentional, the way that these sorts of things are designed, and they're meant to evoke different feelings. And so there are no good or bad responses to what you see or feel in the cards. It could be in combination with another one. It could be because of the circumstances today, tomorrow, the day after. Like these sorts of things are fluid and they change over time. So we just ask that you be exploratory and generative and willing to sort of bask in some uncertainty and be a little playful when you're using these, because if you come at it with that mindset, I'm sure that you will see some sort of symbolism that might strike you in our exercise. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both so much. So yeah, we'll just open it up now. We're gonna give you guys like 20 minutes to just play around with these cards. You can draw stories for yourself. As Liz and Eric mentioned, we do have booklets with some examples of ways you could potentially use the cards if you like. Some of them are a bit more complex, some are more simplified, and you could also do a 3-card pull similar to past, present, future, or to as Liz described it, a seedling journey. We'll open up and take time to do that now. And then if you want to grab a partner, we also invite you to do that too. And we will walk around the room to join you folks.
Yeah, for a little guidance, if you start with that 3-card pull, it's the simplest. So take your deck, shuffle it, put it all on a table and sort of mix it up. Or if you're online, you can just sort of click to reveal whatever's beneath it. There will be instructions for how to do that on the different decks online. But just sort of think of some sort of prompt as you're doing it to sort of ground yourself in what it is that you're trying to think of and express and see. And then just pull 1, 2, 3. And so if you were thinking like, what's my current relationship to technology, past, present, future? What is a way that I can be more mindful in my engagement with X type of technology. How has it been in the past? What is it currently? What is the future? So that's a really simple past, present, future 3-card poll. And we will circulate around, kind of chat with you and see what sort of insights you've got going.
I open up now just some time for questions that might have emerged either out of the decks themselves or questions that were generated from the prompts you were given. Or even if folks online or in the room want to share like some of the stories and things you found, we'd love to hear from you as well. So any questions or things like that, I'll open up the space.
Some visual aspects. I see that there's a lot of mushrooms. I didn't know that seems to be like a very specific type of nature. I didn't know if that had any meaning or context that I'm not quite aware of, or if it was just a visual choice.
All of the above, but also we are very rhizomatic in the way that we try to envision what we're up to in the humanities and in the Lincoln Center for Applied Ethics. By dealing with some things at the surface, you can kind of reveal that broader sort of infrastructure. It's just so it's something. It's used in a lot of humanities using the adjective rhizomatic or the rhizome, and so that's one of the reasons that we included it. It's just a nice shadow side to the seedling too. There's a whole world beneath the surface that's also organic and living. And all that we tend to see when we're drawn to the greenery and the imagery of nature and the cards is kind of what's above ground, but there's plenty that's just hidden beneath the surface.
I could talk about mushrooms all day, literally. Mushroom at the End of the World was the name of the book that everyone should read. Mushroom at the End of the World, everyone should read that book. But also, I think for me, in addition to the rhizome, there's something beautiful and meaningful in the way that mushrooms have communication networks that are very, very kind of different than communication networks that we're used to. And so that kind of, if we're thinking about the way that mushrooms communicate, and we're also thinking about some of the imagery in there that's like trees and seedlings, right? There's just it's like there's multiple perspectives and multiple ways that we can connect to both the kind of issues of technology, but also to each other.
And you can make music with mushrooms.
You can make
There is a whole TikTok rabbit hole you can follow.
Yeah, there is a TikTok rabbit hole you can go down of people who go out into the woods with synthesizers and they clip electrodes to the mushrooms. So the mushrooms have a very weak electronic signature, very weak impulse. And so it clips electrodes to the mushroom, impulse transmitted to the synthesizer, which turns it into abstract music. And somehow TikTok has given me a lot of these videos to watch, and they've been very fun.
We brought it back to the algorithm.
Yeah.
Anyone else or anyone online?
I guess the idea of like finding what you're looking for in the cards, like it's the same as finding what you're looking for in the algorithm. Like the idea of scrolling and flipping over cards is similar in that like whatever you see, you take from it what you want to see or what you're looking for. And I thought that was really interesting, like how the process of tarot itself relates to the process of being on the internet, I guess. So.
And I would just challenge you, just like you did today in mixed groups with folks that you don't know. Their perspectives are going to be so much different from yours. And that's the same way that your content is being curated specifically for what the algorithm needs to be your different personality traits. Step outside of that and see the world from someone else's perspective.
I love that. And I have to just add to that, because one of the things that we talk about a lot in this TikTok project is how the For You page on TikTok is a kind of different form of kind of content delivery than we have seen in a while. And Sarah, you might want to expand on that.
Oh yeah, it's just TikTok is the only social media platform that is popular in the US that is not owned by a US Silicon Valley company. And because it is not owned by a US Silicon Valley company, they seem to have developed the algorithm with different logics and priorities. And so one of the big differences is like on Instagram, on YouTube, on these other platforms, it's a very winner takes all kind of model. The algorithm is going to serve you the content of people who paid to have their content shown, or people who are already celebrities who are on social media, or people who already have big followings. So you're going to get more of that. Whereas TikTok tries very much to surface smaller content creators to mix up who they show you, so they're not always showing you the same accounts. And it tries really hard to look at. I'm talking about like it's a thing, like it's a sentient thing. The algorithm appears to be sorting people into niches that you would not expect if you were going with an American marketing perspective that largely shapes sort of the Silicon Valley platform. So I think it's an interesting difference in how you can curate the For You page.
And you enjoyed mushrooms with synthesizers, and you didn't even know that that content was for you. Very exploratory compared to mushrooms.
But getting less.
Yeah.
And getting more focused on the commercial. Pardon my swearing, but this is an actual academic term. Cory Doctorow coined the term enshittification. That every platform goes through a process of enshittification where it starts out and it really wants to get users, so it's really awesome and fun to use and does a lot of great things for you. And then you get a bunch of users and now they're going to try and figure out how to make money off of the platform. And so now it's more ads and it's more sponsored content and it's more, and then it just kind of becomes more like a shopping mall and less like a social media platform. And people have gone through and sort of traced this trajectory on not just social media and a lot of technology products.
Anything else that people found or that you wanted to explore? I also, again, to the folks online, if you have any thoughts that you'd like to share, we're happy to read them out for. I'm also just struck by these connections that we see between, some folks already hinted at it, but when you're going through something so exploratory and open-ended as a deck of cards, sometimes you'll draw something that really resonates and you have a moment of like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And you feel deep connection. And I think TikTok and the algorithm mirrors that much in the same way, twofold. And I'll leave this either open-ended just as a proper discussion or maybe it's a question. I'm not sure if it's a question, but some people might find that endearing and that they can find really niche content that resonates, or it's that moment of, my FBI agent is working overtime because they really seem to know what content I like, or I just talked about my cat and now I'm getting a million cat videos. So perhaps either in the work that you've done leading up to this grant that will now take off at the end of the month, what has your experience been either with content creators or even just as users of the app been in exploring this kind of content?
So much of what you do is broken down into the smallest little bits of data that are then traded online in a wild west of bidding and auctioning to get different content in front of your eyes. So you talking about your cat, it's not it listening to you, but it's listening in the sense that you sent a video that is then posted to Google Photos and it has a cat that's identified there, and then they're selling that. Or you went sat next to Sarah, who has cats and has searched for cat products before, and so and you located that. Yep. So it tries to see who you were in community with in real life, in addition to on the digital world space. And it is creepy if you think about it that way.
And we had a conversation, Benjamin, we had a pretty late conversation that there is a concept that scholars now are studying called conspirituality, which is a thing that people do where they treat the algorithm the same way they would tarot cards, that they treat it as if you're seeing this, you need to see it. And people make content like that. Like, if this is on your For You page, it's because you need to hear this message, right? And sort of imbuing the algorithm with this kind of mystical quality that is giving you what you need at the time that you need. Which is really great for TikTok as they give you more and more ads.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is what I need. I need to go buy this thing. Right? Is the idea the ideal for them?
I love that word, conspiracy.
I wish I could take credit for it, but
Oh, I've never heard of that before. It describes it so well.
And also, maybe this is related, but I think it's a tangent because I'm thinking back to, the origins of this project for us. And one of the things that I think Sarah and I were particularly interested in, and then as Erica came onto the project, we were all very interested in, is how TikTok seems to be very, very good at doing all the things we talked about, but also forming solidarity networks. So because it's good at sorting you into spaces, it is also good at creating community of those that might identify in the same way as you. So there are a lot of historically marginalized or under-resourced communities that use TikTok to organize. When the pipeline protests were happening, and everything is still happening, pipeline protests are still happening, but those kinds of activist groups use TikTok because it's very, very easy to serve that content to communities that care, right? Now that also is a danger because everything on the internet can turn into an echo chamber. And that means that misinformation and disinformation, right, can be pushed into communities in the same way, and at times can be, even more insidious. So I just had to mention that it's one of the things we were like really interested in at first. Yeah.
I have a image thing, and I also kind of have a greater question. The first is I think it's really interesting that it's in almost everyone. I know I mentioned that.
She said the sun or the.
That's interesting.
Oh.
I see the moon.
Oh.
I think it feels a little bit like two things for me. First of all, like it's always a full moon, which reminds me of like this kind of like cyclical nature. And then the other thing is he's always kind of watching over, and it always, even when clouded, even when covered, there is like a purity sense of it, which I think to me gives hope that there always is going to be kind of nature untouched by technology. At least at this point, maybe not forever, but at least at
Tons
this
of
point.
space junk.
In our galaxy, maybe not other, we'll see.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting. The other thing that I had, which I guess kind of speaks to the title of your guys's the Lincoln Center for Applied Ethics, going up that like applied ethics part. When you're talking about the algorithm and some of these things and the goods and bads and everything in between, are you generally more concerned about technology, or do you feel not concerned, or do you feel somewhere in the middle? Yeah, I guess that would be the question.
Any question?
In this current moment, I have to admit, as somebody, I have my entire career, I've devoted myself to studying technology, and we had this conversation. We love technology, right? I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but I love technology, and yet I find myself right now in this moment expressing concern more than anything else, and I don't know if that's a function of me as a teacher, and that kind of whatever is missing in the broader conversation that we're having tends to be the thing that I feel like I need to contribute. And right now, the broader conversation, particularly things around AI, is very much, it's coming, it's inevitable, and we're gonna have to use it, and it's gonna replace us all, and it really overestimates the technology, and it obscures a lot of the fact that like that technology relies on low-paid gig workers to label data and moderate content, to work It erases the fact that the data centers, right, ChatGPT costs $700,000 a day to run. And those data centers use huge amounts of water to cool them. So we have now in the Southwest where we are in drought, they're building huge data centers that will be using tremendous amounts of water. And those are things that we are not talking about, right? Social media with misinformation, disinformation. It's really been a place where extremist networks have formed and connected with one another. That there are a lot of currently unmitigated problems posed by technology that I don't think have to be that way. I don't think it's inherently that way. But I think we're at a moment now where we need ethics to decide, right? Do we want to use up all of our drinkable groundwater so that people in offices don't have to write memos, right? Like that's, so that nobody has to learn to use commas. Are we gonna use up all of our groundwater because, we'll just have ChatGPT do it. That's the moment that we're in. And those are the questions that I'm asking. So right now I'm a little pessimistic. To answer your question, but I'm optimistic in us as people. I think we can imagine something different, better.
And we have a current future of work initiative that we're working on in the center in concert with a lot of people from across technology, entrepreneurship, advocacy, and different sorts of labor academics who are out there, thinking about current models that are being perpetuated and what worldviews and priorities come with those, and how could you think of a more holistic and ethical future for those who are on the margins and whose voices don't get heard as frequently as a result.
One final question, take us home.
So when you bring these points up to people working to create these technologies or people who are making the decisions to put a data center here in the valley, what is their reaction? How do they explain their decision to make these choices?
I mean, it's easy to talk about these companies or these technologies or people making these decisions as these like oppositional entities. And they're not, they're people just like any other people. So the answer to why are they building these data centers in the desert is because if we don't have them, we don't have internet. There are 5 million people who live here, so we have to have them and also their jobs. And so right now, the short term is the more pressing thing. And so, and it's the same with AI, it's the same with social media, is that the people who are making those things really, really do, most of them want to make ethical decisions, but there's a set of constraints around them and short-term pressures that force people to compromise because of what needs to happen now.
And so I'll say too that what's so great about what Sarah just said is that when we are in the room and we are holding these what we call design studios, we're talking about the future of work, we're talking about responsible artificial intelligence, because we have people in the room that want to have these conversations, because most do, right? Like they're Silicon Valley now, there's a kind of coming to ethics moment that's happening. So when we're in rooms together, what we do is we go in and we say, well, there are possible worlds that we need to build together. And just having that conversation, and honestly, the possible worlds that you're seeing in this tarot deck are just like a metaphor for the kinds of conversations that we have, because the tarot deck was actually formed from those conversations. So we had conversations about the future of humane technology and what we're going to do in these rooms to make the world better, make the future better. We're one ethics center, so we can't do everything. But I wanted to return, I know we have no time. Yeah, I want to return to the moon and the tarot deck and the observation that it's hopeful. Because I think one of the things that gets lost in applied ethics or ethics conversation is hope for better futures, because we are so concerned with the constraints. And I think that that's something that in the Lincoln Center we try to remind ourselves and our collaborators. That didn't probably answer your question, but thank you so much for it. Thank you.
And I know that we are out of time. I'm so grateful for everybody who joined us in the room today, for folks online. I'm so grateful for your presence. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Please take your copy of the deck home. And there are some extras around you if you know somebody who would love to experiment with this deck as well. We're also happy to stay, we'll be wrapping up in the room, but if you're lingering, you can stay to chat. And folks online, we also welcome you to check us out online and contact us if you have further questions. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks again, everybody. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you.
Yes.